16 scientists gave up, but this poor secretary revealed an incredible solution in just 3 minutes. Hannah sat at her cluttered desk, waves of anxiety swirling in her chest like a tempest. The high school's buzzing halls echoed the weight of her worries, mounting bills stacked like blocks ready to topple. The town's recent turmoil over contaminated water only deepened her concern. How could she, a mere secretary with little more than high school experience, even begin to help? Every day, she walked the tightrope of her responsibilities, balancing her job and part-time hours at the local diner. Her husband, now laid off from the factory, sat at home, the weight of failure pressing down on him. Their 2 young children, full of innocence, innocently asked, "When will things get better, Mommy?" Their bright eyes and hopeful smiles knotted Hannah's heart tighter. Hearts broke when the news flashed across the town. Scientists from a prestigious university had come to save them, armed with advanced degrees and the promise of technological solutions. But after weeks full of tests, they folded like paper in the wind, retreating to their labs, leaving behind yet another empty promise. The town was left breathless, grappling with dread and anxiety. Gossip swirled, fingers pointed, blame sprinkled like ashes on the ground. The divide between the townsfolk and these highbrow academics felt monumental. Yet within Hannah was a flicker of resilience. She felt her father's spirit guiding her, the inventor who taught her that even the most ordinary things can be solutions in disguise. The memories flooded back the workshop where they crafted devices from scraps, tools from chaos, and, above all, hope from despair. With mounting pressure and her family's well-being on the line, she dove deep into local resources, researching, brainstorming ideas, and gathering the community's wisdom. "Hannah, you can do this," she whispered to herself, a mantra against the tide of self-doubt. At the next town hall meeting, surrounded by anxious faces with furrowed brows, she felt the lump gather in her throat. With her heart racing and palms sweaty, she stepped up to the mic and began. "Friends, our situation seems dire, but I believe we can tackle this together." Her voice shook yet grew stronger as she explained a simple, yet innovative approach to purify the water supply using readily available materials, the kind of method her father might have used. Gasps filled the room, and eyes widened around her. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As Hannah concluded, a hush fell over the crowd. She could see the spark of hope igniting in their eyes. They began to exchange whispers, the reality of change dawning upon them. Even the scientists looked on, their previously impassive faces betraying interest. Slowly, carefully, they started to rally behind her. Her idea began to pulsate through the community, reigniting old relationships, sparking conversations long silenced by despair. But as excitement grew, an ache ran through Hannah. From the shadows of her past loomed her estranged family, watching her rise with a mix of pride and regret. Would they finally see her worth? Yet, as the joyous change swept through town, anxiety tinged the edges of her optimism. What if her solution failed? What if she lost the little family she had left? What if this newfound recognition tore her apart? Hannah felt the weight of these questions as she stood on the precipice of transformation, waiting. Hannah's heart raced as the murmurs of approval filled the room. Each smile and nod felt like a tiny victory. She couldn't help but notice how the tension in the air seemed to lift, like a heavy fog breaking to allow the sun's warmth through. The townsfolk were beginning to believe in her, but the exhilaration was quickly mixed with doubt. What if they tried her approach and it didn't work? Unable to shake the sinking feeling in her gut, she forced it aside and turned her focus to the people before her. She had a plan. She had to believe it could save them. After the meeting, the excitement buzzed like bees around a blooming flower. Town members approached her, eager to help. Local mechanics offered materials, Teachers signed up to educate on purification methods, and even the kids were inspired to spread the word. Her thoughts turned to her husband, Mark, who had been quietly battling his own demons. She hoped he would join in. Maybe this would reignite something within him. Just remember, Hannah thought as faces surrounded her. This isn't just about the water. It's about rebuilding hope. When she returned home that evening, the house felt different. The air was thick with lingering worry, but as soon as her children saw her, their joy lifted spirits. Rita, her youngest, barreled toward her and hugged her tight. "Mommy, are you famous now?" Rita asked with wide eyes, a grin stretching across her little face. Hannah chuckled, ruffling the girlish hair. "Not famous, sweetheart. Just trying to help." Mark sat slumped at the kitchen table, his gaze distant. As the kids chattered about their day, Hannah's heart wavered between elation and concern. It was hard not to notice how her husband seemed to shrink further into himself. "Mark," she asked gently when the kids finally went to bed, "are you okay?" He sighed heavily. "I just don't know how I can help. Feels like I'm just stuck. You're out there doing something incredible, but I'm here, and it feels so wrong." The ache in her heart tightened. "You're not stuck. We're a team, remember? This is us fighting for our family. I wish I could see that light like you do." His voice trembled, exposing his vulnerability. Without thinking, Hannah reached out. "You can. Maybe just take a little step, join me tomorrow. Help me set up a meeting if we can get more people involved. There's power in numbers." Mark looked into her eyes, searching for a spark. She could feel that familiar bond flicker between them, as if igniting a flame of hope. "All right, I'll try," he whispered, the shadow of doubt still hovering but giving way to determination. The following day, Hannah poured all her energy into organizing the community. She worked tirelessly alongside Mark, who gradually found his voice, reaching out to neighbors and friends. But even as the tide of change began to swell in their small town, lingering shadows loomed. What if the scientists discovered a flaw in her plan? Or worse, what if it was too late? Would this newfound hope come crashing down? As Hannah watched people gather in their modest home for the meeting that evening, she felt the weight of expectation rest heavily on her shoulders. Taking a deep breath, she was ready to share her vision, yet doubts still nagged at the corners of her mind. The moment drew near, and as friends filled the room, her thoughts spiraled. What if she was destined to fail at the very thing she believed in most? With the sound of laughter and hopeful chatter surrounding her, she knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. But where would it lead them? And could it heal past wounds while sparking change? She inhaled deeply, feeling both nervous anticipation and steady resolve. "Okay, here goes nothing," she whispered to herself, stepping into the light once more. Hannah took a deep breath and stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest, the murmur of the crowd blending into a low hum as she tried to focus. She quickly scanned the familiar faces, neighbors who had cheered her on, friends who had just recently begun to trust her vision. She noticed the hopeful glimmers in their eyes, and for a moment, that fear subsided. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she started, her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. "I want to share something that could change everything for our town." She paused, feeling the weight of their gazes, their hopes resting on her like a blanket. She pushed aside the doubts crowding her mind. Instead, she thought of the children, their laughter and innocence. That's who she was doing this for. "As you know, our water situation is dire. Scientists have done their part, but it's time for us to try a more hands-on approach." The chatter quieted as she began explaining her plan, local purification methods that could be implemented immediately. She shared the stories she had gathered, evidence of how other communities had come together and triumphed against the odds. With each word, her passion grew, feeding off the energy in the room. "There's a system we can build ourselves," she continued, gesturing animatedly, using natural and accessible materials. "Think of how empowering it would be for us to solve this with our own hands, and teach our kids that they can make a difference." The room erupted into applause. Laughter and voices mingled, and Hannah's heart soared. There was a palpable sense of energy. It felt like a dream. A light was flickering back to life in the faces around her. Even Mark stood a little taller beside her, nodding along. But as the meeting progressed, she noticed an unfamiliar face at the back. A man with a skeptical but curious expression. His arms were crossed, and the way he looked at her made her stomach churn. When introductions were made, she found out his name was Thomas, a new resident as of a few months ago. As Hannah wrapped up and opened the floor for questions, Thomas raised his hand, a serious look crossing his brow. And what if your methods fail? What's the plan then? The room fell silent. Hannah felt the weight of uncertainty. I believe it won't fail, she said, trying to project confidence she barely felt. We can adapt, we can change. We'll be in this together. But how can we trust that? The scientists, they've been cautious for a reason. He challenged, his tone cutting through the hopeful buzz. Hannah could see some hesitation creeping into the faces around her, and for a moment, she felt herself falter. Thomas, I know it's a leap, but isn't hope worth something? As she spoke, she realized her own fear was echoing around the room. They needed more than just her words. They needed solid reasons to believe. She took a deep breath and remembered how far they'd come. This wasn't just about water. It was about community, resilience, and family. Hannah sensed Mark's presence beside her, grounding her. If we fail together, he said firmly, his voice steady. But if we succeed, think of what we can achieve. The tension shifted ever so slightly, but not entirely. It was a small ember of hope, waiting for the right kind of fuel. Hannah needed to ignite it. What if they could gather stories of successes from nearby towns? What if they turned that doubt into motivation? Let us take a step together where we can learn, adapt, and grow, she proposed. The murmurs began to rise again, a mix of skeptics and supporters. It was a make-or-break moment, and Hannah felt the strength of their uncertainty feeding on her hesitancy. But she was determined to turn that doubt into a catalyst for change. Let us make a pact. We will document every step, every misstep, and share the journey together, she declared, sensing the urgency. Those who are with me, let us meet tomorrow to start this process. As the minds in the room shifted back, she felt a pulse of excitement. But before she could celebrate, Thomas's serious eyes bore into her again. And if it doesn't work, what will we do then? Every question hit her like a wave, and she knew this wasn't merely a meeting, it was a journey into the unknown. But what would emerge from it? Could it be transformation? Tomorrow we'll take our first step forward, Hannah replied, her voice steady, but inside, a storm brewed. She turned to walk away, but the excitement mixed with anxiety weighed heavy. As she exited, she caught Mark's gaze, and he offered an encouraging smile. But doubts gnawed at her once more. What if the next step was the one that decided their fate? She knew they were treading into uncertain waters, and she could only hope they weren't swimming against the tide for nothing. Where would this take them? Hannah couldn't shake off the chill creeping up her spine as she stepped out into the cool evening air. The townsfolk had shown enthusiasm, but the weight of Thomas's challenge lingered like a storm cloud overhead. She walked briskly, her thoughts racing faster than her steps. What if she was wrong? What if the method she proposed wouldn't hold up? Hey, wait up, Mark called out, jogging to catch up with her. He caught her shoulder, spinning her gently to face him. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, she replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Just processing everything. Mark studied her for a moment, those warm eyes filled with concern. You did great up there. You inspired them. I felt that, she admitted, trying to smile. But the moment Thomas spoke up, it was like a bucket of cold water splashed over everyone. Did you see their faces? They're scared just like us, he breathed out. But you sparked something tonight. You reminded them that if we stand together, we can face anything. His words were comforting, but Hannah couldn't shake the sinking feeling in her gut. What if they're right, Mark? What if we're just chasing shadows? Then we chase shadows together, he said, squeezing her hand. It's better than sitting idly by. You've given them hope. That means something. She nodded, feeling a flicker of warmth in her chest. They turned toward her house, and her heart beat a little faster at the thought of facing the uncertainty that awaited them. The next day, they gathered in the community center, chairs arranged in a circle, the atmosphere buzzing with a mixture of excitement and doubt. Gripping her notes tightly, Hannah stood before her neighbors, her heart starting to thump. It struck her. They were all afraid. She was too, but she had to push through. After a round of introductions, she asked each person to share their thoughts and ideas. Voices bounced around the room, some brimming with enthusiasm, while others worried aloud about the risks. Maybe we should focus on smaller steps, suggested a soft-spoken woman named Sarah. Start with just one method? See how it goes before committing to a whole system? Or what if we bring in some local experts? Another man chimed in. We could consult with people who've done this kind of thing before. Hannah felt a swell of appreciation. Yes, that was it. They needed to lean on each other as strengths. Absolutely, she said, her voice growing stronger. We can research successful programs nearby and build our plan using their insights. Let us compile everything we learn and share it openly. This isn't just about me anymore. She continued, it's about all of us. The enthusiasm picked up again, and ideas flowed freely. Designs were sketched out, phone numbers exchanged. For the first time, it felt like they were not just talking, they were really collaborating. But the shadow of doubt still lurked. But Hannah, Thomas spoke up, his brow furrowed once again. How will we pay for this? We can't just rely on good intentions. Her heart sank for a moment. Bills loomed large like mountains in front of them. But she steeled herself. Together we can apply for grants, she suggested. With enough voices, we'll be heard. We can spread the word and involve local businesses. The response was mixed, but rather than falter, she felt determination fuel her resolve. If we don't try, we'll never know what we could achieve. And as she looked around the room, seeing eager faces lean in closer, a wave of empathy washed over her. They all wanted change, they all needed it. Perhaps by uniting, they could forge their path forward. Later that evening, as Hannah sat down to reflect on the day, Mark joined her outside. The stars twinkled overhead, whispering promises of hope. You were amazing today, he said, nudging her playfully. Do you really think so? She asked, hope and fear tangled in her heart. I know so, he replied, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. But there was still that dull ache of uncertainty. They were moving forward, yet the ground felt shaky beneath them. What would happen the moment they faced their first obstacle? Would they stand together, or would fear pull them apart? As Hannah gazed at the night sky, she felt a quiet resolve swell within. They would face whatever came next. She would not let fear win. But that same doubt whispered in her mind. Could they truly make it work? And when would the first challenge appear? The next morning brought with it a heavy fog that clung to the town like a ghost refusing to leave. Hannah sat at her kitchen table, staring at her laptop screen, her coffee cooling beside her. Doubts gripped her mind tighter than a vice. The community meeting had sparked something, but could it withstand the pressures of reality? Just then, a notification popped up on her screen. An email from Sarah caught her eye. Good news! I spoke to some local experts, and they're willing to meet with us next week. They specialize in community projects. Relief flooded her. Perhaps they weren't alone in this after all. With renewed energy, Hannah fired off a quick reply, then turned her attention back to the challenges. She needed to gather everyone's thoughts, consolidate what they had learned, and formulate a plan. It was time to get to work. Later that afternoon, in the community center, the group convened once more. This time, the air was thick with a sense of purpose. As members trickled in, Hannah felt a buzz of excitement mixed with trepidation. She greeted each person, her smile genuine, but the fear of failure still loomed over her. Okay, everyone. I hope you had time to think more since our last meeting. Hannah began, feeling the pulse of the room quicken. Today, we will discuss what we've learned from those who have come before us. Right, Thomas interjected, arms crossed. But let us not lose sight of the reality. What we hope to achieve has real costs. I know that, Hannah responded, her voice steadier than before. But think of this as a first step. The fact that we're all here means we're ready to resourcefully tackle this as a united force. An elderly gentleman named Bill, known for his wit, chimed in with a nod. And if we can knock on enough doors, someone is bound to open one. Let us be persistent. The group chuckled softly in agreement, but as Hannah looked around, she noticed Thomas's brow still knit in skepticism. Felt like a barrier she needed to break. Let us focus on the opportunities first, she said, trying to keep the momentum going. Who here has ideas on potential partnerships? Voices circled the room as suggestions flew. They talked about collaborating with schools, local businesses, even nonprofits who shared their vision. The energy shifted, and for the first time ideas flowed unabated. As she watched them come together, it struck her. Hope was contagious. Each laugh, each shared story brought them closer. But she couldn't help but wonder what if reality brought them crashing down? An hour in, a plan was forming. People divided into groups to tackle specific tasks. Research, outreach, and fundraising. Just as things began to feel manageable, the door swung open, and a sharp voice broke through the camaraderie. Sorry to interrupt. I need to know why we're wasting our time with this nonsense. Enter Laura, a longtime resident who had spent years in local government. Her presence felt like a sudden thunderstorm, dampening their newfound optimism. Laura, we're trying to make actual change here, Sarah responded, her tone akin to a gentle plea. Change? You really think this will work? You're setting yourselves up for disappointment. Laura shot back with an air of finality. Hannah's heart raced. With every word from Laura, her fears clawed their way back up. Maybe it won't work, she admitted, standing taller, trying to meet Laura's piercing gaze. But not trying is a certainty we can't accept. We have to at least see if it's possible. As silence enveloped the room, emotions hung thick with unanswered questions in the air. What would Laura's antagonism mean for their fragile unity? Hannah turned to her friends. Their faces reflected her uncertainty, but beneath it, there was a flicker of determination. Could they face the storm together? Just then, Mark stepped beside her, his presence steadying. We'll figure it out. Together, he promised, squeezing her hand, grounding her. But Hannah's mind raced. Could they really withstand the turbulent winds of doubt? Would Laura's skepticism seep into the hearts of the others? The challenge had been laid bare before them, and despite her resolve, Hannah could feel the darkness inching closer. Would they triumph in spite of it all, or would fear blow them apart? As everyone stood at a crossroads, she could feel the weight of their collective breath held in anticipation. She needed a plan, a way to turn doubt into a rallying cry. And just as she began to speak, a thought struck her hard. Could this moment be what they needed to ignite their true power? How far would they come together? And what awaited as the next challenge approached? The room stirred with tension after Laura's outburst. Shadows flickered across the faces of those gathered, and Hannah felt the weight of their uncertainty pressing down. This was not how she envisioned their meeting. Laura, with her seasoned past in local government, wielded influence like a sword, and right now, it was unsheathed. Listen, we all know that change is hard. Hannah began, tasting the words like steel on her tongue. But every single one of us is here because we care about our community. Do we? Or do we just want to feel good about ourselves? Laura shot back, shaking her head with a smirk. The room flared with murmurs, a mixed bag of support and dissent. Let us not waste what we've built so far. Mark interjected with a subtle nudge, raising his voice to move the energy. I saw everyone's enthusiasm earlier, and that matters. If we don't act now, nothing will change. We'll be stuck in the same loop, waiting for someone else to solve our issues. Hannah could see the heads nodding, a glimmer of unity sparking in the crowd. Maybe Laura is right about the challenges, Bill said softly, breaking the silence left in the wake of Marcus' passion. But we can't dismiss our desire to try. It's like David against Goliath. Seems impossible, but wouldn't the victory be worth it? Exactly. Hannah chimed in, emboldened by Bill's words. We are not here just to dream, we're here to do. We can't predict the outcomes, but we can control the effort. The moment we doubt, we give power back to the fear. Laura's scowl deepened as eyes turned toward her expectantly. And what happens when you fall short? You'll just end up disappointed. Or we'll learn. Hannah countered, the words bursting from her as if igniting from within. Every failure is a step closer to success. Isn't that how progress works? If we never attempt anything, we'll stay trapped. The room fell quiet as Hannah's voice lingered. There was a spark igniting in a few hearts. Attachments to dreams and hopes began unfurling in unspoken promises. Let us make a commitment, Hannah proposed, looking from face to face, her gaze landing on Laura. A commitment that we will give ourselves a chance. For every setback, we try 2 more times. And if we fall, we will come back up together. The murmurs turned into nods and murmurs of agreement, a shared understanding binding them. Hannah felt lighter, as if her heart was breaking free from a weight she didn't realize she carried. Suddenly, Laura crossed her arms, the hard sheen of her demeanor faltering just enough. Fine. Say you do this. What's first? Are you really prepared for the grind? Hannah met her eyes, unflinching. Let us start with the experts Sarah contacted. If we can involve people who have succeeded through hardship, we can learn their secrets. As discussions resumed, the energy shifted from one of uncertainty to bubbling anticipation. Ideas bloomed. Phone numbers were exchanged, and laughter crept back in. Hannah felt warmth in her heart. Could they really be doing this? The air crackled with something new, a sense of unity even in the face of Laura's skepticism. But still, a whisper of doubt lingered in the back of her mind. What if the storm returned? Later that evening, as they wrapped up, Hannah gathered her things, but Mark lingered behind, concern etched into his features. You were incredible, he said, sincerity woven into his words. But what if it's not enough? She confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. He took a step closer, his eyes steady. What if this is just the beginning? Change might not arrive overnight, but that doesn't mean it's not on the way. You have more strength than you know. His words stirred something in her that she couldn't ignore. They echoed with an electric hope. Could this truly be the start? As they walked out together into the fading light, the fog was lifting, revealing a crisper, clear evening. But Hannah's chest held tight with unease. Laura's skepticism had struck deeper than she wanted to admit. There was no denying they were taking steps forward. But could they withstand the inevitable pushback? Would they hold the line when doubts continued to swarm? Just as they reached the parking lot, Hannah's phone buzzed. It was a new message from Sarah. Her heart raced. What now? What could it mean for their fragile progress? As she glanced at Mark, who was looking at her expectantly, she realized this journey was far from over. There were deeper challenges ahead. Would they have the strength to embrace the storm? Hannah stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. She opened the message from Sarah and her eyes skimmed over the words, barely processing the rush of emotions surging within her. The excitement of progress crumpled into anxiety. The text read, I just got off the phone with Dr. Peterson. He's willing to meet with us tomorrow, but there's a catch. He only has an hour and he wants to focus on the most pressing issues first. Are we ready? Is everything okay? Mark asked, his brow furrowing as he noticed the color drain from her face. She let out a shaky breath, attempting to ground herself. This was it, the moment they needed, but the pressure weighed heavily. Sarah just texted, Dr. Peterson can meet tomorrow, but we need to be ready with our questions. And for discussion, Hannah replied, her voice trembling slightly. Mark's expression shifted to one of determination. Great. This is a huge opportunity. We've been wanting guidance from experts. Let us make every moment count. She nodded, but a nagging fear twisted in her stomach. What if we don't know what to ask? What if he thinks we're wasting his time? Then we'll adjust, he said, his tone firm. We can brainstorm tonight. If we don't know where to start, we make progress. It's okay to feel pressure, but using it to drive us will matter. As they climbed into the car, Hannah's nerves felt like igniting sparks that could easily turn into a fire. Mark reached over, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Hey, we've come this far. And it's just the beginning, remember that. The road ahead was filled with the buzz of city lights, illuminating their growing sense of purpose. Yet, for every flicker of hope, doubt clawed its way back into her mind. Would Laura's shadow loom over them in this pivotal moment? What if Laura shows up? She's gonna wanna shoot down whatever we come up with, Hannah thought aloud as she stared out the window, watching the world zip past. Mark's voice softened. If she does, we stand our ground together. You really touched everyone today. If we believe in ourselves, then others will follow. The warmth of his encouragement enveloped her like a cocoon, but deeper still was the conflicting chill of fear. They didn't have time to waste. They needed the right questions to break through the facade of their uncertainties. Arriving at her small apartment, Hannah felt a surge of adrenaline. They climbed inside, and she pulled out a notebook, its crisp pages waiting for ideas. Together, they wrote down every pressing issue: community health, environmental concerns, economic disparities. Each word pulled them deeper into a shared resolve. Suddenly, an unexpected thought flickered across Hannah's mind. What if we frame it differently? Instead of just listing problems, what if we also ask for the possibilities? What can we do to solve these issues? Mark's eyes lit up. That's it. We can ask about solutions. Maybe he has insights on how to bring the community together, or even suggestions for funding programs. As their discussion unfolded, excitement surged between them, a genuine spark igniting to life. Each idea reshaped the atmosphere around them, morphing fear into a solid plan. But just then, Hannah's phone chimed again, lighting up the darkness that surrounded them. Glancing at the screen, she read a new message, this time from Laura. Heard about your meeting with Dr. Peterson. I expect the results will be comprehensive. Don't waste his time. The words stung, each syllable a prick against the progress they just made. Tara's heart dropped, her determination wavering. Mark noticed her flinch. Ignore her. Focus on what we're doing. We can't let anyone, especially her, dim your light. But as the night deepened, Hannah felt that shadow grow larger, crowding her mind. Could they truly shatter the doubt that loomed? Or was it simply part of the struggle? With plans in place, as they finalized their notes, Hannah couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would test them. Would they rise above the noise? Or would they stumble in the pressure of expectations? Their moment of truth was inching closer. Just outside the door, the shadows of the night seemed to whisper secrets. Would they conquer their fears or be consumed by them? The question lingered in the air, as uncertain as the dawn ahead. The morning light spilled through the thin curtains, casting a warm glow across Hannah's cluttered kitchen. She sat at the table, notes scattered around her like fallen leaves, her mind swirling in a whirlwind of worry. The clock ticked, each minute feeling heavier than the last. Mark was already awake, brewing coffee and trying to infuse energy into the air. The rich aroma filled the room, yet it couldn't drown out the unease gnawing at her heart. She was grateful for this moment together but terrified of what lay ahead. Are you ready? Mark offered, placing a steaming mug in front of her. The concern in his eyes was obvious, but she saw the flicker of encouragement as well. Hannah hesitated, wrapping her fingers around the mug, feeling the warmth seep into her palms. I don't know if I can do this, Mark. What if he dismisses us? What if he agrees with Laura? Mark leaned closer, his voice low and steady. Then we pivot. We prove her wrong. Remember, even the smallest voices can unleash the biggest changes. Just focus on your passion. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She wanted to feel that confidence, but doubt still clung to her like a stubborn shadow. How could they cut through years of mistrust and negativity with just 1 hour? As they finished their coffee, Mark set the intention. Let us review our points one last time before we head out. Together, they went over the solutions they had brainstormed the night before, trying to fortify their resolve. Community engagement, Hannah listed, her confidence slowly building with each word. Partnerships with local organizations. Funding for initiatives, what else? The clock was merciless, inching closer to their meeting time. The tension in the room thickened, and despite Mark's spirit, Hannah felt the adrenaline shift from excitement to pure anxiety. When they finally walked out the door, The sun greeted them, bright and blinding. The city bustled around them, but inside Hannah, there was only a silent battle. Her heart raced, and the fear of failure loomed overhead like a storm cloud. "Do you think Laura will show?" she asked, trying to mask her uncertainty as they walked to their car. "If she does, let her come. We're here for the community, not for her approval," Mark replied, his eyes fixed ahead. There was a strength in his words, but deep down, Hannah worried that Laura's presence could derail them. The drive felt like it lasted forever, each red light a reminder of the time slipping away. They pulled into the parking lot with minutes to spare. Hannah took a deep breath, clutching her notes in her lap. "Okay, remember, focus on what we can do. Don't dwell on others' negative energy," Mark reminded her as they stepped out of the car, their shoes tapping against the pavement, echoing like drumbeats in her ears. Inside the building, the air was cool and sterile, the fluorescent lights fluorescing too bright. Anxiety coiled within Hannah as they approached the meeting room. Mark walked confidently alongside her, a steady anchor in the eye of her storm. That as they reached the door, the world fell silent for a moment. She glanced at the nameplate on the door, Dr. Peterson. Her heart quickened not only from anticipation but from the weight of expectations. What if this was the moment they had dreamed about, or the moment they had feared? When they stepped inside, the room was bright and filled with hope. Dr. Peterson stood to greet them, a slight smile on his face. "I'm glad to meet both of you. I've read over your proposal." Hannah's throat tightened, but she forced a smile. "Thank you for making the time for us," she managed, her voice breaking slightly. As they settled into their seats, the initial small talk melted away, and the room thrummed with potential. This was it. But did they have enough courage to reveal their ideas? Did they have enough to inspire him? "Hannah, start with your key issues and let us dive into those solutions," Mark said, glancing at her with an encouraging nod. Hannah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her notes in her hands. She glanced at Dr. Peterson, ready to take that leap, but just before she began, her phone vibrated in her pocket. With a sinking heart, she fished it out, reading yet another message from Laura. "I'm expecting a full report by the end of the day. Make it count or you'll regret it." The cold grip of doubt clenched around Hannah once more. Would they really be able to make their voices heard above the noise? The moment was critical, and as the clock ticked on, the real question echoed in her mind. Would they seize this opportunity or let it slip away into silence? Hannah's heart thudded in her chest, each pulse a reminder of the stakes they faced. She took a breath, steadying herself, urging her racing thoughts to calm down. The room felt larger now, every corner shadowed by what seemed like 1,000 possibilities. Would Dr. Peterson listen? Would he understand the depth of their concerns? As she opened her mouth, Mark's reassuring gaze reignited her flame, and she focused on the task at hand. "Thank you for meeting with us, Dr. Peterson. We appreciate your openness to discuss our concerns regarding community safety and outreach," she began, her voice carrying a slight tremor. Dr. Peterson nodded, leaning forward slightly, the small gesture offering a glimmer of hope. "I'm interested in your perspectives. What do you believe are the primary challenges we face?" Hannah glanced at Mark, who nodded encouragingly, and she launched into it. "The lack of effective community engagement is a major issue. We've seen how this disconnect leads to unsafe environments and mistrust. We propose enhanced partnerships with local organizations to foster better relations. If we work together, we can build a foundation based on transparency and mutual support." As she spoke, the words flowed from her with newfound vigor. The knot of anxiety began to loosen, and she surprised herself with the passion fueling her voice. "And," she continued, "we need funding for resources directed towards safety initiatives. We believe investing in community programs will create a ripple effect. More resources mean more opportunities for collaboration, less crime, and less fear." The clock ticked softly in the background, but it felt as if time had paused. Dr. Peterson's expression shifted, a contemplative look replacing his earlier neutrality. "Interesting," he said. "Collaborative approach. Tell me more about how you envision these partnerships. The conversation began to flow, and with every exchange, Hannah felt the walling doubt chip away. Mark chimed in, adding points, sharing their brainstorming results, and his voice strengthened Hannah's resolve. For the first time in ages, she felt like they were being heard, like their ideas mattered. But the moment shattered when the meeting room door creaked open, and in walked Laura, her presence a dark cloud looming over them. The tension in the air thickened. Hannah felt a gut-wrenching anxiety encircle her as Laura strode in with a smug confidence. "Sorry I'm late, but I had some important matters to attend to," Laura said coolly, her gaze scanning the room, landing on Hannah and Mark. Dr. Peterson glanced around but held his ground. "I'm glad you could join us, Laura. We're discussing community strategies." Hannah felt her heart race again, dread mixed with exhilaration, as she watched Laura's expression shift at the mention of community engagement. Would she derail everything they had built up to this moment? Laura countered quickly, her tone sharp. Community engagement while ignoring key issues like budget constraints is naive. You need to face reality. We can't fix everything overnight. Hannah clenched her fists under the table and fought back. It's not about fixing everything overnight. It's about starting where we can, taking small steps. We can't afford to sit on the sidelines waiting for everything to be perfect. Our community deserves better now. The air in the room electrified with tension as both women locked eyes, a battle of wills playing out in silence. Dr. Peterson watched, intrigued yet cautious, weighing the conversation. "I appreciate the dedication from both sides," he interrupted, trying to navigate the growing storm. "But how can you ensure this partnership will address those concerns without stretching too thin?" Hannah took a breath, drawing the attention back to their original purpose. "We can conduct workshops to identify the community's core needs and allocate funds where they matter most, as well as set up regular check-ins with you, Dr. Peterson, to keep us accountable." Mark nodded, his expression encouraging. "We need to create an open dialogue between all stakeholders to refine our approach. Let us build a framework that can adapt." The room fell silent as Dr. Peterson contemplated their words, his expression shifting as if he was weighing their ideas against Laura's criticisms. "Let me consider both sides," he finally said, but before he could continue, Laura interjected, "Considering both sides means compromising. We can't provide unnecessary funding for what could be seen as safety fluff." Dr. Peterson's eyes flickered with a hint of frustration. "Laura, we're not in this to debate harsh realities at every turn. We're trying to pave a way forward." Hannah felt a flicker of hope. Could they truly make headway in this moment? But just as everything felt like it was leaning in their favor, Laura shot a warning glance at Hannah, her expression darkening. "Whatever you propose, remember, change takes time. Don't get your hopes up." The meeting lingered in an uneasy pause, every breath feeling like a weight. Hannah's heart raced. They had pushed through. They had asserted their voices. But now fear loomed as heavy as before. Would they finally push forth, or would her worst fears unravel their progress? As Hannah locked eyes with Dr. Peterson, she knew the moment was now. Would he take a chance on them, on change? Or would Laura's words echo louder than their vision? The answer hung heavy in the air. The tension in the room was palpable as they stared at Dr. Peterson, waiting for his verdict. Hannah felt as if time had stopped. She could almost hear her heart thundering in her ears. Dr. Peterson leaned back, fingers steepled, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "You're right," he finally said, breaking the silence. "Change won't happen overnight. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't start laying the groundwork today." Hannah's heart leapt. Hope flared like a sudden wildfire as he continued. "Your ideas are solid, and the community's involvement is crucial. I'm willing to propose a pilot program to get this initiative off the ground. We can start with localized efforts to gauge how the community responds and adapt from there." Gasps fluttered through the room, and Hannah exchanged glances with Mark, whose eyes shone with pride and excitement. There it was, that glimmer of possibility they had fought for. Laura shifted, her eyes narrowing. "But what about budget constraints? You can't sign off on something without a solid financial structure." Dr. Peterson cut her off, his tone firm. We will structure the funding as the program evolves, and I believe community support will play a role in securing those funds. If they believe in it, they'll back it. The air buzzed with energy, and as her mind raced, Hannah felt a shift in the room. We'll also need to document everything. She jumped in. We can share our progress and setbacks openly. Transparency will build trust. Yes. Regular updates and check-ins, Mark interjected enthusiastically. We'll keep everyone involved, share successes and even failures. It's all part of our learning process. Dr. Peterson nodded, a subtle smile forming. That's what I want to hear. Community engagement and good communication will be essential to this program's survival. Hannah's heart soared. They were igniting a spark of change, a possibility to transform what once felt impossible into a shared dream. And we'll need volunteers to help with outreach, she added, her voice brimming with determination. The more hands we have, the lighter the work will be. Count me in. Sarah's voice came from the back, drawing a chorus of agreement from others. One by one, hands began to raise, eager faces glowing with the fire they had ignited as they transformed fear into action. Laura crossed her arms, still skeptical, but Hannah could see the cracks in her steadfast demeanor. Let us just hope it doesn't turn into a waste of resources, she muttered, but her voice had lost its bite. We'll ensure it doesn't, Hannah replied, a newfound confidence surging through her. This is our opportunity to prove that we deserve a voice and that change can manifest in our town. As the meeting progressed, plans solidified, and the atmosphere shifted from skepticism to anticipation. Dr. Peterson outlined next steps, the room abuzz with collaborative energy. For the first time, Hannah felt the burden of fear lift. Maybe they could weave a tapestry of hope where despair once reigned. When the meeting drew to a close, the group erupted into applause, and Hannah's cheeks flushed. It wasn't just gratitude, they acknowledged their shared resolve to face the future together as they walked out into the bright afternoon sun. Mark turned to her, the corners of his eyes crinkling with pride. We did it, Hannah. They believed in us. She felt the weight press on her shoulders, but it wasn't fear. It was a deep joy spreading through her soul as she smiled broadly. No, we did it together. We all did. As they stepped into the world outside, a newfound energy surged through the town, the laughter of children echoing in the background. This was just the beginning. Hannah looked toward the horizon, determined and hopeful. They would face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. Because that was the beauty of community, they were stronger as one, and together they would forge a path toward a brighter tomorrow. And as her children's laughter danced in the air, Hannah felt a warmth in her heart. This is the moment we've been waiting for, she whispered to herself, taking Mark's hand tightly as they walked into their transformed future. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and not miss out on the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement truly matters. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.